Welcome back to Scrap Value Garage. It's time we had a little fun, so we take our wrecked 2006 Magnum RT, fix it, do a charger front end swap, theme it up as the General Magnum, our not so subtle tribute to the General Mayhem, and hit the road for 2,500 miles all up and down the East Coast on the Lemons Rally. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're gonna break this up into a few pieces. We're gonna go ahead and do the mechanical and cosmetic bits, theme the car, and then hit the road. I'm kind of excited about this project because it's something we wanted to do for a long time, ever since we got the car, really. A little disappointed because the reason we're doing it is the car was actually recently totaled. It was in a rear-end collision and totaled immediately by the insurance company. It was pretty much a no-brainer on their part. And it was my wife's daily driver. She loves the car, and so I felt kind of morally obligated to try to bring this thing back to life. We are finally getting our first good look at the carnage on the Magnum. Aside from the obvious, bumper cover, hood, fenders, lights, grille, core support, etc., the front of the motor really took the brunt of the hit. So when we got the car back, we noticed that the pulley won't even turn on the water pump, and it's actually shoved into the water pump housing. So we wanted to get that off to make sure there's no damage behind it, and there doesn't appear to be, so that's a good sign. You can see the pulley actually got smashed off of the power steering pump. The lines are torn on that. All the tensioners and idlers were broke. Radiator, condenser, all the lines are bent, tweaked. Core support's gone. Headlights are just nothing left of those for the most part. Underneath was the biggest surprise. So the transmission crossmember, which is a cast aluminum piece, that was cracked. The motor mounts weren't just broke, but the aluminum brackets that attached them to the engine were broke. So we'll get the car from the air, you can get a good look at those from underneath. Everything else looks pretty salvageable. It was an SUV that hit, so really the bumper and crash structure were mostly left intact because they kind of submarined underneath. So the frame horns are straight, which is good, but the engine and everything else really took the brunt of the impact. Unfortunately, the accident managed to break the motor mounts. So not necessarily the rubber isolated bit, but actually this cast aluminum block. I can't even get my hand up in here. This cast aluminum block that attaches the motor to the motor mount is cracked. We already popped off the little heat shield, and I'm probably gonna spend quite a bit of time and a few choice words trying to get that sucker out of there. We went ahead and removed the broken motor mount bracket as well as the old motor mount. This actually doesn't look as bad as I thought it was. I really thought that it's gonna be a lot worse shape after 110,000 miles, but it has some cracking around it, but overall it's not that bad. I am gonna go ahead and replace this anyway though, based on the age and the accident. As you can see, it wasn't really much of a choice here. It was, there was no fixing this. I went ahead and bought a new one of these because I wasn't able to find any readily available in any junkyards. And I could have hit a couple of U-pull-it yards, but getting this out was a pain enough on the lift. Doing it in a muddy, nasty junkyard just wasn't very high on my list. You want to talk about carnage? Here's our mount damage. These things got destroyed. Cross member split in half. Engine mounting brackets shattered, both sides. The motor mounts, they were old and trashed anyway, so those got replaced. All this stuff was rusted and seized in, so that took forever to replace. So yeah, this is like a week of my life I'll never get back, is just replacing all of this garbage. One of the things we pointed out earlier was the water pump damage. Since this car has 100,000 miles on it, some cooling system maintenance isn't necessarily a bad thing. And we're also gonna go ahead and put a lower temperature thermostat while we're at it. But you see, new water pump spins nice and free. Our old water pump, you can see the pulley was actually what took some of the impact, and it was pressed into the housing here. And it's, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's very not happy. So we'll go ahead and replace this and freshen up our cooling system in the process. The whole front of our motor's back together. New water pump, new tensioner, used power steering pump. Our old idler pulley was still in pretty good shape, so we went ahead and reused that. Rather than trying to deal with the power steering pump, I went ahead and went to the junkyard and just bought a complete power steering unit. I was able to get a replacement reservoir and hose as well, since all those got banged up in the crash. Went ahead and put a new power steering line on. One of the good things about This crash has actually forced me to replace some things that had been leaking and not really been well taken care of up here. So at least got a little bit of maintenance done while we're at it. So we're gonna go ahead and throw our cooling stack in. The junkyard also yielded a radiator, condenser, and cooler, and fans. And so we're gonna go ahead and throw those in here and hopefully be able to fire this thing up. So as you can see, in the front of the engine's back together. Just a bunch of not very much fun part swapping to get to this point, but it needed to happen. So we're gonna hop in and try to crank this thing up now. So there we have it, it's alive. I think it's probably a good place to pause while we, what is that cracking sound? So there we go, it's alive. What is that noise? So there we go, it's alive. Super excited that everything went back together on the front of the motor. Everything checks out good, no major leaks yet. So hopefully we'll be good to go. We can move on with the cosmetic stuff. We're gonna be doing the front end from a 06 to 10 Charger, so the earlier car. I think personally that body style matches a little bit better with the Magnum because the Magnum is the older body style as well. Some people do the newer swap. It's a very aggressive front end. I really like the looks. I have a newer Charger, but I don't think it matches very well with the rest of the car. They're also significantly more cost effective. I'm talking like almost an order of magnitude cheaper. We got our core support for 30 bucks. Our hood for 60, our fenders for 50. We're gonna be buying new lights because the lights are fairly cheap. It's about $100 to $120 for a brand new set. And all the ones you find in the junkyard are pretty much garbage anyway. If you don't already realize it, the Charger fenders have a different shape to them than the Magnum fenders. So they have a different body lines. But for right now, we're gonna go ahead and just mock everything up and see what it looks like and try to have some fun with it. So you can see we've got our core support in. Everything lined up nicely despite the hit. We were able to straighten up the tabs that mount the lower bolts down here. These lined up perfectly. Everything dropped right in. Still got a little bit of work to do to line up our brake lines. They gotta be contoured a little bit to fit back where they belong behind this core support. And we went ahead and mocked up the Charger fender. So it dropped right in, everything lined up perfectly the way it's supposed to. If you come around back here, you can see why you can't just bolt the Charger fenders onto a Magnum. So the body line on the Magnum comes down to a sharper edge here and then more of a slab side, whereas the Charger has a sharp edge up high and then a rounded contour that comes down the side of the body. So as a result, what we're going to have to do eventually is to cut somewhere through here and section the rear half of the Magnum fender into the front half of the Charger fender. Also, for whatever reason, we can't avoid these things. Half the cars I looked at in the junkyard had them. This car, the Magnum, even had them when I bought it. So portholes need to stay on Buicks. That's my 2 cents. Keep them off of Chargers. No Mopar portholes, please. All right, so at this point, the Magnum is about as good as it's going to be for the rally. We have a conglomerate of about 4 different 06 to 10 Charger front end pieces, all bolted on, all assembled. Everything's hooked up as far as lights. We've had it up and down the road. And I think that's a great stopping place for this video. Be sure to tune in for the next one because that's when the General Magnum is going to be born. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks to everybody who's liked and subscribed to our videos so far this year. We've turned this to a no kidding sort of legit YouTube channel. So be sure to drop some comments too. Let us know what we can do better. And look forward to wrapping this thing up to get this car on the road. And you'll see it all in the next episode of Scrap Value Garage.